Welcome to the June 21st Cupertino City Council meeting. So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance first, or the roll call.
We can do the roll call now and the pledge at the regular meeting, or we can do the pledge now.
Oh, right, the pledge is at the regular meeting. That's right. Yeah. So the Mayor Paul cannot be here due to personal reasons, so I will be chairing the meeting. Let's do the roll call, please.
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Wei? Here. Councilmember Willie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Here.
And Mayor Paul is absent.
Okay, great. So this study session is the draft Climate Action Plan 2.0. Who will be doing the presentation, Jim?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Actually, we're going to be having Andre from our sustainability group do the presentation for tonight.
Great. Welcome, Andre.
You're on mute, Andre.
Only happens once a day, doesn't it? Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. So happy to be with you today. My name is Andre Dervort, Sustainability Division Manager. Tonight we have a study session regarding the Climate Action Plan update known as CAP 2.0. We're hoping to get your feedback
Andre, you're having some sound issues there. It's breaking up quite a bit.
Okay.
No, that's still sounds like a robot.
Andre, I could take over if you like. Hi, I'm good evening, Honorable Vice Mayor Chow and council members. I'm Gilly Corral, Climate and Utilities Analyst. And as Andre mentioned, we're here for the CAP 2.0 study session. We're also joined by our consultant team, Rincon Consultant. And I'm just going to share my screen with our presentation. Hopefully that's coming through. Looks good. Today, we would like to request council feedback on the public review draft Climate Action Plan 2.0. Your feedback today will give the project team time to make any adjustments before council adoption in early August. And I have a short presentation on the project to date and the draft plan content. The Cupertino General Plan directs the city to create and maintain a Climate Action Plan, or CAP. The CAP is a planning tool which guides policy and program development around reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Council first adopted a CAP in 2015, and we actually beat our emissions reduction target for 2020 ahead of schedule. And in response to achieving the target ahead of schedule of the first CAP, the council initiated a plan to update the CAP. So in December 2020, the council provided input on zero waste and carbon neutrality goals, which triggered a year-long process of technical and engagement work to develop the measures. In a study session checkpoint last November, the council provided input on the draft high-impact measures. And the project team considered feedback from the council, the Sustainability Commission, and the public, and we made changes to the draft measures and actions to better reflect community priorities. So we released the public review draft of the Climate Action Plan 2.0 in April to the engagement website, which is cupertino.org/climate action. And we simultaneously released a survey to collect feedback on the draft document. The Sustainability Commission then voted to recommend that the council adopt the CAP 2.0 and also provided additional recommendations around school transportation and promoting vegan and vegetarian options in the community. On June 5th, we began the formal 30-day public noticing period for the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. This will be a CEQA qualified CAP that will be used for aligning new developments with the plan. The CAP 2.0 places Cupertino on a pathway towards carbon neutrality by 2040. And this is 5 years ahead of the state's carbon neutrality target. This waterfall chart summarizes the roadmap and the greenhouse gas reductions from state laws and from each of the sections in the draft plan. The red reduction bars that you see give you a sense of the relative impact of the different sections of the CAP in reducing emissions. So you can see that the cleaning the air and connecting communities are the largest bars. That is because energy and transportation, these sectors are our largest sources of emissions. The getting to zero waste and working with nature sections have less impact on emissions, but are still critical to protect Cupertino's natural environment. So in these next few slides, I'm going to give a brief overview of the measures in the draft plan. City staff worked with GreenCon consultants, who I mentioned are here today, to incorporate feedback from the council and the public engagement process into these measures that we'll review today. The energy and electrification measures aim to increase the use of clean electricity provided by Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and also cut back on natural gas usage in homes and in businesses. In the transportation sector, the measures move cars, trucks, and off-road equipment to clean fuels and increase biking, walking, and public transportation and shared transit. The waste measures aim to achieve a 90% reduction of waste by the year 2040. And as Cupertino experiences longer and more severe drought, we need to make water conservation a way of life. This CAP will make the current water restrictions a permanent target by 2030. We can remove carbon from the air and protect Cupertino's natural beauty by working with natural systems and increasing trees. The CAP also includes measures designed to strengthen our capacity to adapt to a changing climate. And the CAP's adaptation strategy will be updated to align with the County of Santa Clara's adaptation plan, which is currently in development. So our team took this draft CAP to the community in a roadshow style effort, just to get as much feedback as we could from multiple sources. We tabled at the Earth at Arbor Day Festival. I saw a lot of you there, in fact, held pop-up events at the library and other community locations. We also released a short video to highlight the CAP, and at the same time, a companion survey, which I mentioned earlier. So you can see one of the charts from the survey here. Overall, 82% of the survey respondents were happy or very happy with the proposed changes in the CAP 2.0. So we're now in the end game of the CAP update project plan. In this final stage, we will continue to receive feedback through the end of the CEQA public comment period. And one of the line items in the recently adopted budget is directly pulled from this draft CAP. And that is the city work program item to develop electrification options for existing buildings. And we're aiming for council adoption of the CAP 2.0 in August and begin implementation right away. This is the best time for the council to give us specific feedback on the content of the plan. Your feedback today will allow staff to respond to any comments or make revisions if needed to the plan before it comes back to the council for approval in August. This concludes my presentation, and the consultant team and staff are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you. Great presentation on how do we have any public comment? Zoom on the Zoom. Anyone raised hand?
Vice Mayor, we have one person, Jennifer. Now,
Okay.
Apologize. We have 3 hands raised. Jennifer, Dashiell Leeds, and Peggy Griffin.
Okay, great. Jennifer.
Thank you. I was a bit confused because my screen went black, but that's okay. Hi, thank you for a nice presentation on the CAP study. I think that it certainly is a very, very important study. I will tell you that I was a bit disappointed with the transportation section. There has been so much time and effort put into fighting some of the high density housing bills that I get really frustrated when I see inclusion of things like in the transportation section. We have almost verbatim, word for word, AB 2097 from Assembly Member Laura Friedman from Glendale, which is trying to put in parking minimums for the city. She's trying to do it for the whole state. This is a replay of AB 1401, which I personally spent hours a year ago trying to make sure that it did not pass. We were successful, but bless her heart, she reintroduced it one day after the other one went away in the assembly. And people now are spending hours trying to kill this bill. I guess it makes me cross when I see things like this in the in Cupertino's own sustainability report. I don't want this in here. This is tables, I think it's table 17, TR4 on page 85, TR 4.9, TR 4.6, citywide parking minimums, parking, it just goes on and on. Limit parking for gas and diesel vehicles. Okay, that's fine, but it's like, who are we trying to fool here? This Cupertino has cars. I spent the last 6 weeks carting my mother back and forth to the hospital in a car. The 90-year-old woman cannot go on a bicycle. She is very ill. This is what is left out of reality land when we start talking, when we're pushing the bicycle limit. I am beginning to think that people that exclusively ride bicycles do not take care of family members. All they can do is spend 90% of their time joyriding on their bicycles all over the county. Now, I know that that is really not correct, but I think that it is getting very, very irritating to me to be called insulted by every YIMBY action, YIMBY law, to be told that I am supposed to ride a bicycle. I am a grown adult. I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry, and I own a home, which I sacrifice to keep. I will not be told that I will ride a bicycle. This has to be reiterated, and this is why people are spending good time and money and donations with groups like Livable California fighting this balderrol by Laura Friedman. This is the example of stuff the public doesn't get to vote on this. San Jose City last Tuesday, entire city council members voted to reduce parking in their city.
I think the time is up.
Please take this
Jennifer.
out.
So, thank you, Jennifer. I forgot to say that whoever wants to speak, please raise your hand before the first speaker finishes speaking. But now, since I didn't say that, so I'll extend the time till the second speaker finishes speaking. You can also send an email to the city clerk to be read as the public comment. And then after the online comment, we will go to the in-person comment. Next is Dashiell, and then Peggy Griffin. And then I see Connie Cunningham. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. My name is Dashiell Leeds. I'm the conservation organizer for the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter. Just like to thank Andre, Gilly, and all of the other staff and consultants that have worked on this climate action plan draft. We think it is absolutely excellent, and we're in strong support. We did send in some communications in mid-May. You can find those in the link D, additional written communications received on the agenda. and we're PDF page 12, and that is our letter. I'd just like to highlight a couple really quick things from that letter that we'd love to see implemented in the Climate Action Plan draft. And I'll start with amending Action WW 1.2 to include updating the municipal code to implement Valley Water's Model Water Efficient New Development Ordinance. We've listed out some of the elements of the ordinance in there. This is a model ordinance that Valley Water has provided, and they will also be providing support for cities that wish to implement this. This would be great just to fold into the CAP measures. Additionally, we would love to see Cupertino include something like an end of flow date that corresponds with their greenhouse gas reduction goals. Cities like San Jose are considering this, and this seems to be an effective market signal. And I think the more of these we could get into climate action plans, the better. And then lastly, we'd love to see Cupertino seek to support a transition away from the use of gas fuel cells. Apple facilities are identified in BE 5.1 as a significant source of energy consumption in the city. So maybe there's something that Cupertino can do to help Apple and other potential stakeholders to explore solutions to transition away from those existing gas fuel cells and to explore other backup solutions. We do have some other specific things that we'd love to see implemented in our letter, but I won't take the entire public comment time going through them. I'd just like to highlight those few, and I'll cede my time to the rest of the folks. Again, thank you so much for your work on this.
Great. Thank you for your comment and your letter. And next we have Peggy Griffin.
Good evening, council and staff. I want to thank you all for obviously a great effort, and I appreciate the detail and the explanations for why behind the actions. One of my concerns is water conservation. With the drought, more people are removing their lawns and covering their yards with non-permeable ground coverings, including concrete, artificial turf, and gravel gardens laid down on top of sheets of plastic. This results in more runoff and less groundwater recharge, which is very important. I'd like to see the CAP address this more directly. We have a rural overlay in our area, and it requires a certain percentage of the front yard not be paved or hardscaped. So maybe in R1s and other areas, you could consider this. As far as trees, please encourage trees and shrubbery that help reduce the carbon footprint more. Palm trees are low on that list. Use incentives to encourage the selection of the preferred trees. I'd like to see that. And also to address tree removal. It appears to me like commercial businesses are allowed to remove trees, but residents are punished for removing trees. And I think if a tree takes that long to grow, there should be some value to it that's more than just the homeowner or the business, but the community. I also sent a list of corrections or changes in an email, and one of the particular ones I want to draw attention to is under transportation. It is TR 4.4 on page 90. I'd like you to insert the word permanent, so it reads frequent permanent transit options. No one with a regular job or part-time job is going to risk converting to public transportation if they are not confident that the transit route or method they're going to use will be there next year. And VTA's approach does not do that. So thank you very much for your efforts, and I look forward to an update. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Peggy. Connie Cunningham. Connie Cunningham. I see another hand, Darren Chu.
Hear me now?
Connie, yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Mayor Chow and council members. I am very pleased to be here this evening, and I too want to thank you. Thanks to the folks who have prepared this CAP plan for all of their work on it. Is really an excellent effort. I do have comments about it, but that is not to take away from the efforts that have gone into it, and I very much appreciate it. The questions that I have are a lot about housing. On page 36, it states that Title 24 is expected to reduce emissions due to reduced electricity and natural gas consumption in new residential housing units. There is a difference in how people interpret new, so you need to define that. Does this include remodels that create a complete new house, or does it only count new homes that add to housing stock of the city? Cupertino does not have too many of that in the second batch there. Another question I have is that our city has a goal of over 4,500 new homes in the next 8 years, and a housing element that is in the planning stages. Does this cap take that planning into consideration for its goals? I saw that you had, business as usual, and then you had estimates for the future, but I don't know if it takes into account this housing element, which is a very big change. Another question I have is that I noted that funding and equity are separate pillars. Therefore, I noted that not all the equity actions have a clear source funding identified. This is a serious omission, since funding is critical to making these changes work. And certainly in today's environment, a lot of funding coming for helping affordable homes is from grants and other kinds of things from county, state, federal. Another question that I have is, how will this plan operationalize your goal on page 54, affordable housing and local development? The statement in there is that though through alignment with the California Environmental Quality Act, this cap can help facilitate local development that will enhance human-centered economic corridors and the availability of affordable housing. And that a key co-benefit of a comprehensive and updated cap is the promotion of thoughtful development that will complement the city's environmental goals. This is achieved by creating a clear pathway for new development so it can align with Cupertino's greenhouse gas reduction plan. I so urge the council to carefully consider how this cap will help the city plan for new housing in the housing element. This is like the perfect segue of thought process going on about how to save energy and also to plan for our future. Climate and housing really go together hand in hand. Thank you so much for your time and for your efforts on this plan.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Last speaker virtually is Darren Chu.
Hello, council members. I'm Darren Chu, a rising senior at Monte Vista High School and a co-leader of the Silicon Valley Climate Action Organization. I hope that Climate Action Plan 2.0 will continue aiming to reach the long-term goal of 2040 carbon neutrality and maybe even exceed it. Additionally, and the main part of my comment is that I really appreciate all the public space and urban native planting projects that have been approved and implemented over the last few years. And I think it's one of the more understressed issues of the state. I hope that these will continue and grow in quantity, as well as advocacy and awareness that comes forward with these projects. And yeah, I really like how there's an urban forest management part of the CAP 2.0. But one issue that I've realized that can't be as easily combated due to restrictions is the known invasive plants and weeds that are allowed to be sold in private nurseries and are still grown on private properties, which oftentimes damages surrounding plants. I think increased education and awareness on this issue of the lack of native and drought-tolerant plants in the area are all the more important. So I think the CAP 2.0 should continue these efforts. I hope you take these statements into consideration when finalizing the CAP 2.0 to help make Cupertino a great role model as a climate leader for surrounding cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any blue card?
No, Vice Mayor, no blue cards and no emails.
Okay, great. Thank you. So now coming back to the council. Yeah, thank you, the staff, for a great report. I especially like that in the staff report, you have a list of tabling events in various festivals, farmers market, Main Street. So this is great outreach effort by the sustainability team. So let's open it up to the council member. I see Council Member Willie has his hand up very early on. So I'll go to you first.
Oh, thank you, Vice Mayor. The hand raise originally was, I thought we were going to do council questions before the public comment, but that's okay. So Andre and Galib, thank you so much for working on this. Climate change is really at a tipping point, and so we need to be making this progress. What I would hope for tonight is, residents that are here, trying to help them understand what we're really talking about in terms of changes. If you could go back to your slide toward the end that had the pictures, I think that will really help with our discussion and helping our community to understand what this will, in fact, mean to them. So, as I kind of understand this, is that these are kind of some of the components that we would hopefully be addressing to remove, sources of carbon that we're already putting out there. Water heater then conceivably would switch from a gas-fired water heater to a heat pump. Definitely speak up, don't be shy. I'm just wanting to get this type of information out to the community. In the kitchen, the cooktop, for those that have gas cooktops, going to a induction heating cooktop. I'm not seeing, the laundry room, but a lot of the washers and dryers are gas powered and going to some type of electric dryer. The furnaces, in most houses are gas fired. And so switching those over also. And then the transportation. And I think all these roll up into, we're talking about going all electric. And so here again, if you have any comments, but I think that's what we're hoping the community is going to be moving to. Still being able to, I think, have life as we know it today, just that our sources of energy would be electric rather than fossil fuel. So again, I'm just kind of putting that out there. Feel free to add more or make some adjustments in what I've said.
Yes, Councilmember Willie, this is Andre Dervort, Sustainability Division Manager. I thank you for those comments. Maybe just a really brief step backwards in how we intend the climate action plan to be used and how we have used the previous climate action plan in setting up priorities for programs and other various activities. So really what you see in the list of measures that Gilly summarized on the earlier slides, none of these by themselves are going to immediately change the way that life is lived in the city of Cupertino. However, they are pointing in a very definite set of directions for city staff and the Sustainability Commission to come up with ideas and proposals for policy changes, for specific programs that should be operated. So just a couple of examples of ones that we're doing today. Our climate action plan in 2015 asked us to move towards a cleaner source of energy, renewable energy. That actually initiated a set of steps that led us to join together with our 13 neighboring cities to create Silicon Valley Clean Energy. That's the single largest impact that we had on emissions locally. So that's just one example of a policy change that was created through consideration of the Climate Action Plan. Another example is a number of programs that we operate today to either incentivize or educate local residents and businesses about actions that they can take to support greenhouse gas reductions. So that's the way we use the CAP. That's the way we intend to use the updated CAP 2.0. And you mentioned a number of challenges that we face that we really have a lot of work to do. Electrification of buildings is going to be an immense challenge, not only from a technical standpoint, but again, education, funding, equity. These are all pillars that we attempted to build in to the Climate Action Plan 2.0. In fact, you'll notice that under each of these measures is more specific actions that will be under consideration. Those actions, we tried to touch upon each of those, what we call pillars, in order to accomplish that measure, which is the headline target we see. So hopefully that gives a little more clarity on how the CAP is intended to be used and addresses some of your comments.
Yeah, so kind of just a couple more comments. Again, the picture, I think, helps to get the across. So if we can get the picture back up there. I'm pretty passionate about this. You know, I be the Cupertino rep on the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board, the representative of Cupertino, and I'm kind of dealing with this each month at our meetings. And the one that I'll kind of bring up is the electrification sounds, you know, great, but it's more of a challenge than you would normally expect on the surface. So Silicon Valley Clean Energy has been working on REACH Code 1.0, and we passed that. Great. It's for new construction. Now, REACH Code 2.0, it's an update because the codes have changed, still dealing with the new construction. Not too much of a challenge, a little bit of a cost impact, but not too much of a challenge for new construction. It's the existing buildings, houses that are going to be the real challenge. And what I keep, you know, trying to remind us on that committee is that, you know, one of the thoughts is replace on wear out. Replace on wear out for the water heater, for the dryer, for the cooktop, things like that. But those appliances with the high demand on those are essentially going to require 220. You can't just go and plug a cord into a 110 and think that you over. When the water heater wears out, the water heater serviceman is going to push for a replacement in gas. He pops it in, he's done, he's gone. The minute you say, oh, I'd like to have it switched over to a heat pump and it's going to need 220, all of a sudden you've got to get electricians, you've got to get permits, and a couple weeks to get that type of activity. And so with that, I've been trying to encourage Silicon Valley Clean Energy to be thinking of ways that they can help the homeowners do this advanced prep for their house so that when the wear out does happen, it really could be almost as quick as the gas replacement. The electricity is already plumbed there at the locations that are needed, and that the service can just go ahead and take advantage of that. So I'd like to, you know, kind of put this out to our climate action plan, that I see that as being just huge. The number of houses, the number of water heaters, the number of furnaces is just huge. And being able to take advantage of that and not have them replaced with gas, I truly believe we have to help the residents be pre-wired for that. And I'm not sure how we'll be able to make that happen. It takes money, possibly grants or things of that nature. So once again, if you have some comments, terrific. Hopefully that kind of gets rolled into our climate action plan, how to help the homeowners, in preparation for these changes that are going to be needed as we move toward all electric. That being said, thank you so much. And I'll pass the ball back to Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. I see Councilmember Moore has her hand up, and then Councilmember Wade next.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor. And thank you, Andre and Gilly, for the reporting and for all of your work that you've done on this project so far. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what it means for this to be a CEQA qualified plan in the future. And we'll start with that, and then I have a couple of other questions. Thank you.
Excuse me, perhaps we can unshare the screen, the slide first.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. I'll explain it in a broad sense, and if there's anything more technical, I'll ask our consulting team to fill in, who are the real experts in CEQA. But it really begins with the general plan. General plan identifies a number of policies to pursue when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions and environmental protection. These are all contained in the environmental protection element of the general plan. And there's some specific language in there that asks us to create what is called a qualified climate action plan. And just for the benefit of the public to understand what that means, and how that's used in cities across the state, is a climate action plan is, as I mentioned earlier, really a policy roadmap. It's not in itself changing the environment, but it's really putting us on a direction, a path with a series of targets and goals. Now, that being said, California state law and CEQA, as you know, really outlines those 20 different environmental aspects or environmental topics that need to be considered when a project goes through discretionary approval. And so when a project becomes CEQA qualified, when a CAP becomes CEQA qualified, that means that there is the ability, the option for a project developer to utilize essentially a checklist approach to show the city, to demonstrate how that project is aligned with the CAP and aligned with greenhouse gas emissions target, which is just one of those 20 different environmental factors. So what we're trying to create here is a plan that can operate on its own as a policy roadmap, but from a CEQA perspective, we can have the option to follow a very simple checklist approach to greenhouse gas reductions that saves everybody time and money, including on the city side, if that project goes that route, just for this one section of CEQA. So I hope that covered that question.
Okay. Through the Vice Mayor. So I was wondering if you have prepared a draft of this checklist already. I'd be interested in seeing that. And I'm hoping that this item will come back to us before August. One thing that would help me is if there were, if the different actions could be collected together in perhaps one of the appendices, so that rather than scrolling through the entire document, we could have them all collected without the additional text. That could help a little bit to be able to see everything easily. I do have some questions regarding the BE2 measure, which is on page 27, and it's showing, I'll just read it, electrify existing residential buildings to reduce annual residential natural gas usage, I should say, from 129 therms per person in 2018 to at most 71 therms per person in 2030 and 16 therms per person in 2040. But then when I look at BE3 for commercial buildings, it's to reduce the annual commercial natural gas usage from 119 therms per person to at most 90 therms per person in 2030. So it just seems like it's less strict on the commercial buildings, if I'm understanding that correctly. And with regards to that, if I'm understanding that properly, I'm wondering what's the philosophy behind that, and can we also think of commercial natural gas usage as being from generally from like 8 until 5 or 7 until 6 in the evening? So I'm wondering why or how this therm usage is being shown like that. So am I to understand that commercial buildings are using more natural gas, and did that take into consideration structures like the Apple headquarters? Okay, thank you. And then I have another question regarding the TR2 on the same page.
Yeah, first to your question about the climate action checklist. We have not prepared that checklist yet. Typically, we would wait until the council has largely approved of the plan. That's the starting place, and the checklist is really just related back to the plan in a more simplistic format. So that would be prepared once the CAP CEQA process has gone through its course. Your next question about measure BE2, the residential electrification actions. I'll speak again at high level about this one. If there's anything more technical, I can ask Rincon consultants to jump in to clarify. But we really have a need to address existing buildings as we've sort of what you call rip the Band-Aid off when it comes to new construction. That's by virtue of our REACH code that addresses new construction, requires those to be all electric with a few exceptions. So existing buildings remains this big elephant in the room. When it comes to the separation of residential versus commercial, those targets were analyzed by Rincon consultants with a tool that they use to essentially take in all of our existing conditions. How much natural gas is being used in each of these sectors? How much of that do we think could be actionably reduced, feasibly reduced, given constraints of time, money, consumer will, existing technology? So all of these factors are considered in the development of those specific targets, and sort of stacked rank. So that's how we came up with those specific targets, and split between residential and commercial. I will say that electrifying residential homes, while not easy, is typically a bit easier than the variety of commercial buildings out there that we have in the city of Cupertino. And so there you'll see the discrepancy of what we think is feasibly done within this short time frame. And I believe you had a third question as well about, forgive me, the transportation measures.
Through the Vice Mayor, it was a question about the achievability of the 29% public transit mode share in TR-2. I think it's very aspirational. I'm wondering what our current share of public transit is now. I've heard it's perhaps around 7% at the most. I was wondering if you have some data on that. Going back before you answer that, in my neighborhood, we still have residents who are heating with wood in the winter with their wood burning fireplaces, And from my own experience with a mini split, I found that heating with that is it's a lot more expensive than the radiant floor heating, which is with natural gas. So I'm hoping that there's some information for how people can convert to electric so I'm in an Eichler type home, in a cost-effective way. That would be really helpful. Also, I just want to two other items before we move on. I was looking at the city of Emeryville, and I believe they have installed solar on most, if not all, of their city-owned buildings. So I'd like to see if that's something that we can be looking into as a policy when we are doing our maintenance and upgrades to our facilities. Also, with regards to the native plantings, if there is some policy that we can have and perhaps have some funding available for not just our residential homeowners to be converting their lawns to native plantings, but for our commercial corridor owners and who oftentimes, if you've been driving down Stevens Creek Boulevard, very simply have ornamental grass, just regular turf. If we have a way to help convert a percentage of that to native plantings and with drip irrigation, as opposed to having those commercial properties simply turn off the water and have the landscape die. I think that we could have kind of a win-win situation where it looks attractive, we're supporting the pollinators, and we have a reduction in water usage. So if you have some information about the public transit that we're currently using, I'd like to hear that. Thank you.
Councilmember Moore, I'll take those each in turn. I believe our transportation mode share is rather low. It's probably in the single digits. I have our team looking that up here in the documents, probably one of the appendices. It is incredibly ambitious to try to get to a double-digit transit mode share in California. And so with that being said, what we heard from the public is that that this should be an ambitious plan. We should set high targets if we're still able to also address those questions of affordability, fairness, quality of life, and come up with funding. So really, one of the ideas around setting an aggressive target like this is really to set ourselves up as in a leadership position that tends to attract funding, attract pilot programs that can start to make headway against this really big challenge, which is twofold with cars. Number one, cars are very polluting. We propose to address that by promoting lower emissions vehicles. Again, that's an education tactic from the city, as well as perhaps looking at ways to improve the infrastructure, such as charging infrastructure. But the other piece is really traffic congestion that comes along with more cars. So we do think that it's important to maintain ambitions in both making cars more efficient, as well as diversifying the ways people can get around. So that's really the logic behind some of those measures you'll see around improving bike infrastructure, improving shared ride modes, last mile solutions, and those types of things in the transportation sector. Regarding electrifying older homes, Eichler homes, it is a massive challenge. And again, the CAP doesn't attempt to answer every way that we can electrify existing homes and businesses, but one of the direct next projects that we'll be working on is approved by the council, and our work program item is to dig into those details. So our work program does include a electrification study or master plan effort. That's something that staff will get underway with as soon as the new fiscal year begins. And that will really include a few things. We'll have a public outreach. We'll have a very detailed technical look at funding, costs to operate. Will adding a heat pump add cost to somebody's home? If so, then we need to think of a way to either offset that cost to the resident or otherwise, phase in these kind of upgrades over time so that we're not creating undue burden. So that will really be dug into in a lot of detail next fiscal year. Regarding solar on facilities, I completely agree. Again, this is an item that the cap doesn't really address when it comes to municipal facilities. We're working with the Public Works Division on a number of PIP projects that will explore solar on our existing facilities as well as battery storage. We've been given a grant from SPCE to explore things like battery storage for emergency power generation and whatnot. So we do plan to become a little more sophisticated in our strategy around how we treat existing facilities, PIP projects, and exploring those whenever we can. Regarding native plants, there's a number of programs underway already around native and drought-tolerant plantings, and those are pretty much built upon in the CAP measures around water. I will take back that feedback, though, that I'm hearing from you and from members of the public that maybe there's a way to emphasize more of the climate adapted plantings or native type plantings that also have ecological benefit. That's some feedback that we can take back and see if there's an action that we can include that wording so it's more specific. But again, all of these actions will be coming back to the council, coming back to the commissions at various points throughout the implementation phase, so that we will have a lot more detailed discussion about specifics when it comes to types of plants and those types of matters. I hope that addressed most of your comments.
Yeah, thank you. So, Councilmember Moore.
You come to me?
Yeah. Yeah, Councilmember Wei.
Thank you,
yeah,
Vice Mayor.
I was looking at you. But
I'd like to thank Andre and our staff team and also the Sustainability Commission for coming up with this really good draft climate action plan. An action plan without real actions are just a dream. So I dug into the plans and I really appreciate, because I can see that education is part of it and support that's divided into technical support and funding support are mentioned in a lot of places. For example, consider working with regional partners to maintain a database of qualified contractors and consultants for electrification retrofits. If I am a resident and I want to electrify my home, I don't know what to do. But this technical support is very, very important. And so there are a lot of technical support actions in this. And I want to follow up with Andre's statements, which is this is a plan. And to come up with detailed actions is going to come up according to the plan. And we as council will set up ambitious goals, and our staff with their expertise, we come up with plans. So I can see 3 areas of what we're going to do: electrification, water, and transit. So on these 3 areas, I'm pretty sure next year we can do work plans, and then the next year follow up with more detailed work plans. And I wrote down a lot of good recommendations already, such as develop a commercial building electrification strategy. And when it comes to strategy, then we need to give them technical support and funding support. There are a lot of recommendations of how we can get funding. In addition to grant, in addition to Valley Water or PG&E's rebate programs, we can have innovative ways to get funding for the city and then to support funding, because money is really what a lot of electrification that be a obstacle for it. If we can have funding support our residents and our commercial buildings to electrify our old buildings, I think there are a lot of action items in this plan that are really good. I'm not going to name all of it, but on the 3 parts, electrification, water and transit, and I like a lot of the good recommendations. I know details will come later. One thing I want to follow up with one of the comments from the residents is about Valley Water's I do believe he mentioned this, and Vice Mayor Chow and I just toured Valley Water's facility, their Advanced Water Purification Center, and we received a recommendation, a report, and this is just in time because Valley Water actually is providing a water efficient new development ordinance with 17 individual measures in total, and the city doesn't have to adopt all of them, but Valley Water will provide technical assistance. So, regional partnership is really, really important. And this is very major part of climate action plan is water. So we need to work with other cities and work with regional organizations in our region to develop real action items. And as for transportation, I do believe, and I think it is in our agenda, I do believe working with our local other cities to develop transit plans throughout the region is a very important part. One thing I've heard from the comments, which I do think we could expand at, is to tie our housing element to our climate action plan. Because it has everything to do with electrification, everything to do with saving water, everything to do with develop public transit. So I don't know how we can tie it together, but I do believe that's an area maybe more detailed plans come up when we have our housing element general plan amendments. So I want to commend the staff and the Sustainability Commission to come up with a really good draft. Today we're getting input, and when we come up with the final draft, then we'll come up with action items every year. And I'm very excited about this, and I think Cupertino City is one of the leaders in the region for climate action items, and we have very active youth group and community members who really is watching what we do. As for Councilmember Moore's comment about our city facilities, I do agree. We need to be a leader in this, and our city facilities need to lead. So when we do remodeling or rebuild, we will put our 100% effort into our city facilities to be climate action, to be a model of climate action. And I do want to mention Sunnyvale City's a new city hall. I think that is a really good model for us to look at it. So that's it. Thanks, Vice Mayor Chow.
Thank you, Councilmember Wei. So I think it's 6:28. For me, I first would like to make sure that I bring up the recommendation from Sustainability Commission so that this their comment will be included in the next update. First is they would like to include some language with coordination with our local K-12 school districts to encourage student with student transportation to school, pick up and drop off. Another thing is an addition of an action to encourage local businesses to label vegetarian and vegan food, and for restaurants to offer vegan and vegetarian options. So I'm not sure the second one is suitable for a climate action plan, but I think I would like to consider that. And then I would like to, I think one of the public mentioned a concern that as we convert a lot of the lawns to permeable surface, we might be losing groundwater. But we do need groundwater to fill up the aquifer so that we can restore them. So could that be put into consideration as we not only conserve water, that we don't want to be converting a lot of surface to concrete or something, that because a lot of the new plants they have plastic covering underneath them. And then another thing is, I think as we do this climate action plan, we need to consider that the Earth is a full ecological system, so we should include the pollination plants and any of the planting that does provide positive impact to the ecology, the animals in our environment. And I agree that the city probably should put in more effort trying to get some grant funding to install solar panels on city buildings and even parking lots. And then the last, but I think is the most important, I do have a concern about the TR2 goal. Yes, I understand that we are trying to be more aggressive, but the goal still has to be justifiable. And so I would like to see some numbers to justify this goal. And we know that in Los Angeles County, where they invested, I think, a few $1 billion in their transit system. After all that's done, their ridership, in fact, dropped. So and then in terms of transit, we also understand from the 2014 Environmental Impact Report for the general plan that 80% of Cupertino residents go out of Cupertino to work, and about 80% of Cupertino workers come from elsewhere. Cupertino alone will not be able to provide a transit structure to achieve the goals. So what external factors we have to depend on, what kind of funding sources and external projects we need to even achieve this goal, I think that should be clarified in the plan. And another thing is, I think we know that we are a city with a large senior population. The last number I saw is 25% of our population is 65 and older, and I think about 25% are likely children, students. That leaves about 50% of our population who go to work, and then if our goal is to achieve a 30% for using transit, then I wonder if that's realistic, because that means 60% of the active working population will be taking transit. It's a big question whether we do even have transit option exist that can take them to their job location. So that's very important to consider. So if we can have some analysis about that. And also, I think a very important issue for Cupertino residents is the reality that we don't have enough transit except a few bus lines, which keep getting moved, canceled, and reduced in frequency by VTA. So when we talk about, we need to remove parking, but reality is people with families do need cars, which is going to be electric, most likely 100% electric in the future. So reduction in parking, does that really achieve the climate goal is a big question. And as we see in big cities, when you don't have parking, people are going to circle around to find parking. That's going to emit more green gas emission if it's not the electric car. So, so that it's a big issue. For Cupertino, is that realistic or not? Something that works in other cities may or may not work in Cupertino. So this is a Cupertino plan. So let's not borrow language from elsewhere. Let's make this something that could be achievable. I want to see this is achievable in Cupertino. Councilmember Moore, let me see. Councilmember Willie doesn't have his hand up. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Andre, going back to the CEQA issue, am I to understand that for a new development that having this climate action plan be a CEQA qualified plan, going to the Appendix G checklist from CEQA, am I to understand that this is going to allow a developer to go to the greenhouse gas portion of the checklist and be able to check off less than significant with mitigation incorporated? Is that essentially the idea behind this? And I'd like the climate action plan to include a little bit more information about the CEQA issue to explain it better to the public. I think that would help. So if you have a response to that regarding the Appendix G checklist, I'd like to hear it. Thank you.
Yes.
Andre, I'm happy to answer this question as well.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Andre. I'm happy to answer this question as well.
We also have our consultant on board. Chris, why don't you take it?
Yeah. So I mean, the purpose of the climate action plan from a CEQA perspective is to create a suite of programs and mitigation measures that apply programmatically. So compliance with the climate action plan, including compliance with the mitigation measures in the climate action plan, means that a project can demonstrate that it has a less than significant environmental impact without a project-specific analysis of emissions. And the theory behind that, it's a standard CEQA theory of tiering, but it's also particularly appropriate for climate because, of course, no individual project has an individually significant impact on global temperatures, right? So it's really a cumulative impact issue, and so that's why it's both very much within sort of traditional CEQA tiering and also particularly well tailored for climate-related impacts.
Okay.
That's your question, Member?
It's somewhat. I would like to have a little bit more information put into the climate action plan document itself, but I am wondering if an extremely large project could actually somehow end up following all of the guidance within this plan, and still, if they had to go the typical route, if they didn't have the CEQA qualified plan suggestions, if it's possible that they would have significant and unavoidable impacts with mitigation, even if they were to follow this. That's kind of my concern, is that there could be a logical size of a project which would be so big that it, even if they followed all of these recommendations, that they would still have those significant impacts. So I was wondering if you had considered that, and you can probably guess the project that I'm thinking about. So I'm wondering if that was considered.
Yeah, our consulting team probably has a good response regarding large projects. Kelsey, you were on the line?
Yeah, I was just going to say that typically...
Kelsey, your audio is pretty quiet. Can you...
let me just speak up louder. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. So for those CEQA GHG checklists, or also known as what would be a CAP checklist here, that is basically a tool that city staff can utilize and provide applicants or themselves, if it's a municipal project, to go through and do a consistency analysis against. But it is still up to the city. The city still has the latitude to require a typical quantitative GHG emissions analysis for larger projects, especially if they would have potentially larger amounts of cut and fill or other items that would be of concern, and wanting to see that quantitative analysis in terms of the city's opinion on that. So The checklist is there for use and to do still project level analysis of GHG emissions, but it's just been a qualitative analysis rather than a quantitative analysis each time. But you can still do a quantitative one for larger projects if you want.
Okay, it's already 6:40, so I guess we should try to wrap this up. I do have one short comment and a final question. I hope to see a stronger language with tree preservation because we have seen trees removed in big numbers when we have development projects. And like one resident says, for common residents, they have to pay a few $1,000s to remove a tree. So that there seems to be a big inequity for this issue that I hope we should look at that. And then another question is when I think the person from Sierra Club mentioned about the gas fuel cell. That I wonder, I don't really understand what is that. So could the staff help clarify, and is it possible to consider that?
Vice Mayor, if I may, what I'll attempt to do with staff in between now and our next time this comes up to the council for consideration is we have a good list of comments and a few questions. What we'll try to do is address most of those questions in some sort of memo to council and offer as well as one-on-one meetings with staff here to see if we've answered those questions. And another thing I heard is some trepidation around the public transit goal. And so what we could do is maybe make some of the small edits that we heard around action language. But if there is concern around something more fundamental, such as the transportation transit goal, we'll need to circle back and see if that changes our goal trajectory at all. What that would mean is if we would need to swap out one measure for another, or maybe make enhancements, say, in the building energy space, we're going to reduce the goal around transportation emissions. So seeing that we're at the end of time now, what we could do is really just try to address most of your comments through memo format and one-on-one meeting with council members, and then come up with some alternatives around the transportation measure for consideration next time.
Actually, I think I would prefer that we have another study session because I really appreciate the comments from other council members, and I would also like answers. I would like to hear their questions and answers too. So I think another study session makes more sense. And also I understand that we each mentioned something, but a lot of things Council Member Moore mentioned or Wei mentioned or Willie mentioned, I agree with, but I won't have time to concur with each one of them. So I would like the staff to really take all of these comments, even though just one person mentioned, but I think we are mostly in agreement, right? So take the whole thing as the council is mostly in agreement with each other's comments. Yeah. So
we'll work
we
with
have no
them
agreement.
to see what we can schedule.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So 1 minute left until the regular meeting. Thank you so much. This is fantastic work. Let's adjourn the meeting until the regular meeting in 1 minute.
Are we having a 1 minute break?
Yeah. Stand up and stretch. Okay, so let's call the regular meeting of June 21st Cupertino Council meeting to order. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's do the roll call, please.
Councilmember Moore,
Here.
Councilmember Way,
Here.
Councilmember Willie,
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow,
Here.
and Mayor Paul is absent.
Yeah, Mayor Paul has family issue that he could not attend, so I will be chairing the meeting. We don't have any ceremonial matters, or do we have any postponements or orders of the day?
No postponements, Vice Mayor.
Okay, so now it's oral communications for any member of the public who wish to address any issue that's not on the agenda of today. You may speak for 3 minutes now. The instruction is on the agenda. We will first take virtual public comment and then go to the blue cards for those who attend in person. So please raise your hand if you would like to speak. And as the mayor commonly do, before the first person finishes speaking, you may raise your hand, and after the first 3 minutes, we will not take more raised hands. So, Jennifer.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. You're doing a fantastic job. These are exciting times with our hybrid. There is an item, I sent a letter to the City Council, I think this was on June 16th, and many people have thought for a long time that SB 9 and SB 10 were predatory bills. They were written with a hidden agenda. I'm going to read this email, which I had found out at the time. HCD gives permission for high-rise to violate San Diego beach height ordinance. San Diego has a voter-backed initiative from 1972 which prohibits buildings taller than 30 feet in the coastal areas west of Highway 1. This includes beach areas as far north as La Jolla. SB 9 and SB 10 included references to building in beach coastal areas and eliminating voter-backed initiatives when they were first introduced. It was believed at that time that these bills were written, that they were targeting the coastal beach zone of San Diego, and they were trying to eliminate this voter-backed initiative in San Diego. It has been proposed that these high-density housing bills are written to spot zone the laws in certain areas of California, and then the bills get passed and they affect the whole state, disguising the fact that they were originally intended for 1 or 2 areas, such as what is happening in San Diego's coastal area. On June 10th, HCD gave a builder permission to build a 60-foot high building in the 30-foot coastal zone area. And I quote, HCD said the coastal zone of San Diego violated state density housing law and it was void. This ruling by HCD is a clear-cut violation of local control laws and voter-backed initiative. This means that HCD can declare any building law in the state void and impose its own rules. The very high density housing laws that HCD is using to declare its martial housing law on state and local housing law was something that the state passed 1 year or 2 years ago and the public never got to vote on. SB 9 and SB 10 were dreamed up, paid for, introduced the California legislature and passed by that same legislator and the governor without the public once being able to weigh in and vote on either one of these bills. Now we have HCD ordering that existing county coastal laws in San Diego are thrown down and void because of laws we, the public, never got to vote on being made law. Give me a break. Whose Putin bill are we living in now? HCD or backers of SB 9 and SB 10? This is proof the whole housing bill drama and SB 9 and SB 10 are some of the biggest charades being perpetrated on the California public in years. A scandal? Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I don't see any other hands up. Do we have any blue cards?
No, Vice Mayor, no blue cards and no emails requests to be read aloud.
Okay, thank you. Now we have reports by council and staff. First, it's a brief reports on council activities and brief announcements. Councilmember Wei.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. A couple of activities. Silicon Valley Clean Energy, as mentioned by Councilmember Willie, that he is a representative, I am alternate. They are having a series of training for alternatives and directors, because we need to continue to learn what is the changing grid and what's in the future in order to be able to support Silicon Valley clean energy, to have financial stability, and also to advance clean energy. So I attended one of the very first workshop and really learned a lot. And I do believe council members need to be educated on a lot of issues in order to make any policy changes. So I'm very glad to have attended that, and they're going to come up with more workshops. And anybody's interested, I'll let everybody know. And the second one is as one of the representatives representing Santa Clara County on the Cal City's Peninsula Division, we have an executive board meeting, and we are going to host a climate action seminar for all our city council members for County of San Francisco, San Mateo, and Santa Clara. And we would like to invite our staff to come with us to it, maybe a sustainability commissioner. So when that comes up, I'll let everybody know. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Moore. I think, Councilmember Whaley next. Councilmember Moore first.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Vice Mayor. So, no, I agree with education being very important. I am actually in my last week of a 3-month course on industrial ecology, ES 62D from De Anza College's Environmental Studies program. It's an online course, which I highly recommend. And prior to that, I took their CEQA EIR course, which goes cover to cover through the entire CEQA desk book. And from the Environmental Studies 62D course, I would like to recommend residents go to valleywater.org/water-savings-org, and they actually have some free items to help you conserve water and their landscape rebate program. I serve on the Environmental Quality Policy Committee for Cal Cities, which met June 10th and had several informational items, including building electrification and an update on the plastics initiative, and that there's been some progress with SB 54, likely due to the concern the plastics industry has over that plastics initiative. If SB 54 is modified adequately, it would be up to the plastics initiative proponents to remove that initiative, and I personally would like to see it on the ballot in November. Lastly, on June 10th, I was happy to attend the Cupertino Lgbtqi plus flag raising ceremony, and along with council members Willie and the Vice Mayor. And there I introduced Thomas Kingery of the Avenidas Rainbow Collective. Avenidas Rainbow Collective is a local community-based nonprofit which specifically supports and celebrates older adults as they discover and learn about themselves and their community. It was an excellent event. Thank you.
Councilmember Willie, please.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, and thank you, Councilman Moore, for raising those items. You know, the LGBTQ flag raising event to me really shows the whole community and the Bay Area that our community is fully inclusive. You know, everyone has a place in this community. And we then had the Pride Month event out in front of Community Hall on, you know, fully inclusive community that we are. And then we also attended Angel Island Immigration Center History Museum on the 11th. And while we're all so busy, we have so many things going on, but this is definitely something that had to be a priority for me. Our community has so many different nationalities that all come together, and we all have history of our ancestors, whether it's first generation or 10th generation, that came to this country through one of the several entrance ports, and one of them being Angel Island. And for us to be able to go through that immigration center and the museum aspects of it and see how these people that came to this country, you know, were just, you know, here by themselves, and for the most part had to pick up and make a life for themselves. And they did. And we are a result of that. It's through their efforts. So it was a great event that our mayor and the Historical Society put together for us, help further educate us on makes us who we all are. So I'll pretty much leave it at that. Thank you, and back to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So for me, on the 10th, I also attended the Cupertino Pride Month celebration out here in the City Civic Plaza, and met the Thomas Kingery from Avenidas, which is a senior center in Palo Alto. But he told me that they also receive funding from the county to provide social work services, which would also include Cupertino. So I have invited him for a chat tomorrow at 2 o'clock at Senior Center to learn more about how they might serve Cupertino residents. On the 11th, I also attended the Angel Island Immigration Center trip with the Historical Society. Really learned a lot. And this immigration center was going to be destroyed until they find out that there are Chinese poems carved on the walls. As a result, they decided to reserve it and even provide, San Francisco even provided funding to restore the building. And plus, there is a nonprofit that raised a lot of funding to preserve it. It's really worth the trip. On the 18th, I also attended a Her Story 2 exhibition at Milpitas Library. It's, I think Councilmember Moore were there too. It's it's a collection of stories about legal cases fought by Chinese American women throughout the history to not only for their cases, but a lot of times change laws to really form the laws that we see today. So, and then on the 18th, I also went to the Memorial Park for Relay for Life. Unfortunately, this year, not many people participate. I wish next year we could do more publicity for that event. On the 18th, I also pitched at the Luther Cricket Field. On the 19th, I attended the Cricket Academy Award ceremony. It was a great event that Councilmember Wei were there also. And I think this is an important sport for Cupertino to support. On the 21st, we have, I and Councilmember Wei also, which is today, we visited the Valley Water Purification Plant. It's a tour that anyone can sign up and join. And it's really educational for everyone to learn about how water could be purified to be even cleaner and than any water that you could find. So it's very interesting. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, we have report on committee assignments. Councilmember Wei.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. So as a representative on the Valley Water Board, we did, with Vice Mayor Chow, went to the Advanced Water Purification Center, but I do want to report two things that came out of that tour. One is, you know, as policymakers, we make things happen and we make projects happen in the future. We are looking for 20, 30 years of beneficial to our next generation. So the four major capital projects that Valley Water is doing right now for the next generations is first is a purified water project, and Anderson Dam seismic retrofit project, South San Francisco Bay Shoreline project, and Pacheco Reservoir Extension project. These are millions and billions of dollars of project that invested into the future. And I do believe Valley Water has that foresight to benefit our next generations. The second one, I've mentioned that already, is Valley Water has a model for new development water efficient ordinances that they would provide technical support for our staff and for the City Council. So I look forward to working with Valley Water to develop those new ordinances so that we can really conserve water in Cupertino. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. So I'll report on the month's Silicon Valley Clean Energy events. So my number one priority with Silicon Valley Clean Energy is to constantly increase the renewable energy contracts, getting essentially in the direction of 100% renewable, whether it's 2035 or 2040, trying to get there. So in this last month, Silicon Valley Clean Energy signed 2 new power contracts for geothermal. And one is with a company called Ormat, and one company is Open Mountain Energy. And so the combined 2 projects are going to be adding 18.5 megawatt to the Silicon Valley Clean Energy power that they will be supplying to the customers. Hopefully, most of us are their customers. So to me, that really is achieving the primary focus. They do have videos for residents to look at on things they can do for electrification, cooktops, and water heaters. As I had said during our study session, it's going to be a challenge to get existing structures, electrified, and they don't have those videos yet, but we'll keep pushing to get those types of things for the residents to be able to move forward. I'll leave it at that for this month. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. Councilmember Moore.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I chair the CEP, the Housing Element Strategic Advisory Committee. We were scheduled for a 2-hour meeting yesterday, which was canceled. And as soon as it is rescheduled, we'll let the public know. And I have volunteered to run a tent and conduct outreach, but we have not been given the materials that we would need. And the meeting yesterday was to have had information on surveys and meeting in a box. The consultant had indicated over a month ago that the website would be updated, but we have not had a full update of that website. And the consultant had to push back their second community outreach meeting because they did not have staffing. And at the last CEP meeting, we were told by EMC, the consultant, that the Planning Commission would review site selection a 3rd time on June 28th. Thus far, site selection went to the Planning Commission on April 26th. It was supposed to go to City Council next. However, on not being scheduled for the council, the Planning Commission Chair Scharf requested a return to them, which it did May 24th, and then was stated by EMC at the CEP meeting May 16th that site selection would be returning to the Planning Commission June 28th, and I've asked that this be a joint planning and council meeting to get council up to speed, and I have not yet heard back if that's going to happen. I chair the Environmental Review Committee, which met on June 16th, 2022, and on June 16th, the ERC recommended that a mitigated negative declaration was the appropriate CEQA document for the I-280 trail, and noted that the MND has an alternative alignment at the Blaney Bend, which can provide for a straighter alignment, but at an increased cost. On Friday, June 17th, I provided the VTA Policy Advisory Committee report to the VTA Board of Directors, which was regarding the June 9th, 2022 Policy Advisory Committee, which I chair. We had various points, so I'll try to be brief here. We requested that 2 items be added to the PAC work plan for future meetings. One was a discussion of the potential use of VTA-owned surplus land for transitional housing. And second, a presentation of VTA's 2016 Measure B annual report on fiscal year 2021, and it's been almost a year since that fiscal year ended, and we are still waiting on that report. So the next meetings we have coming up would be the Legislative Review Committee, which will be meeting on Monday, June 27th at 11 a.m., and the Audit Committee will also meet June 27th at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. So thank you for the great update on CEP. One more thing we were hoping to review was a survey that could be sent an easier, low-cost way for us to maybe send out to, for example, school union employees or other service employees whom we have not outreach to, and other harder to reach population. So we really hope that we can step up on our outreach with CEP so more people can be reached out. And on the 10th of June, I attended the Cal City's Policy Committee for Housing and Community Engagement. And also I met with their public affairs manager to find out what's their endorsement process for ballot measures. And I have written a summary of that I can share with anyone who are interested. Thank you. I think next on the agenda, we have item 3, which is report on subcommittee assignments. Do we have any report on subcommittee assignment? No. Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, I don't have a report, but I'll make the comment that we're still waiting for the mayor to assign the subcommittee for the City Hall, City Annex, structural evaluation, and options. Since the mayor's not joining us tonight, I think it won't be decided tonight, but the sooner that we do get a subcommittee assigned, we'll be able to move forward with that. So thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. I think we do have a subcommittee for historical society and other historical buildings, but then that's on the agenda tonight, so we will hear that later. And then I also realized that from after reviewing tonight's agenda, I find out we actually have another subcommittee. We have not conducted meetings, is a subcommittee to look at the restructuring of Audit Committee to maybe re-examine its roles. That subcommittee has me and the mayor on that, and we have not met. And another thing, I think we have the farmers market subcommittee. That's me and Councilmember Willie. The latest update we have from the Anza College is they finally worked out their issues with the union and other many issues they tried to work out, but then they have an agreement finally ready for the market to sign. But unfortunately, they were really trying to push to be able to waive all the fees. However, eventually they will still need to charge over $1,300 per Sunday for police and custodial. So for this farmers market, this amount of dollar per week would be prohibitive. So we will need to continue to work with the ANZA and maybe look at other options. So right now, their contract will be extended to the end of July, and we will likely have this item on the council agenda for another look. But we do receive a lot of comments from the community that this is a very important community resource they would like to keep. Councilmember Willie, please.
Yeah, I would just add to what you said, and that is that the $1,300 might not sound like a huge sum, but the farmers market is truly trying to supply fresh produce at very, very cost-effective prices to the community. And it is only open for 4 hours, not on. $1,400 being tacked on to all these suppliers, the farmers, for only 4 hours of selling time. Wow. If it could be done, it'd be great, but I'm not surprised that it's a difficult obstacle. And so again, let's see how. Thank you.
Thank you. No more report, so let's go on to item number 4, City Manager update.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. Two items tonight. One of them has a couple subsets. So this is really a nice one. It's Saturday, June 25th. From 10 to 12 p.m., there will be a pop-up event at the Jollyman Park regarding the proposed all-inclusive playground. This event is to solicit feedback from the public about the all-inclusive playground. Wednesday, the 29th of June, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., there will be a virtual community meeting, the first of two, regarding the all-inclusive playground to solicit feedback and input again from the community about this new all-inclusive playground. Finally, Thursday, July 7th, from 5 to 8 p.m., the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program staff, will have a pop-up event at the Memorial Park during the concert series to gather and solicit more input from the community. Oh, this one was input from the community on the Blackberry Farm Golf Course. The other one, and this is really going to be a fun one, haven't had it for a year or two, the 4th of July celebration. The city is excited to bring back a full day of activities this Independence Day. Celebrate the 4th of July with a pancake breakfast, flag raising, children's activities, small parade, concert, swimming, and fireworks show. For locations and a complete schedule of all the activities, please go to cupertino.org/4th of July for all the fun events. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you for the 4th of July update. So we will be having the fireworks from Hyde Middle School, is that correct?
Yes, I haven't been here for one yet, but the same place it's been in the past is where it's going to be.
Yes, excellent. And it's my understanding that the Cupertino City Council will be leading the parade at Memorial Park in costume?
That is what I've heard, yes.
Exciting. All right, thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I think I was trying hard to jot down all the dates and exciting things coming up, but it was hard. Maybe, if possible, next time, if there could be a slide that people can easily do a screenshot, that might be helpful. I assume that they are likely all posted on the city calendar.
Yes, on that, they'll all be on the city calendar, and then the one is under the 4th of July.
Yeah, great. So next we have item number of the consent calendar. So anyone would like to pull an item? Councilmember Moore.
Yes, thank you. I would like to pull items 10 through 15.
10 to 15. Okay, I do see a public hand up. I think I wasn't watching for the earlier items, but those are reports, so I assume this is so I'll go to the public comment. This is about whether you would be pulling an item, so you would not be commenting on the item at this time. Jennifer.
Yes, Vice Mayor. I'd like to pull item number 17 from consent calendar. Thank you.
17. Okay, Councilmember Moore, so you were saying 10 to 15. So, okay. So could I have a motion to pull those items? And
Point of order, Vice Mayor. There doesn't need to be a motion to pull those items, but there does. There could be a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent calendar.
Oh, okay. So could we have a motion to approve the rest of the items? That's 5
I'll
to
make a motion
9.
to. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve items 5 through 9 and 15, 16.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've pulled 15.
Oh, sorry. 5 to 9 and 16.
16. Okay. Councilmember Willie.
All second.
Thank you. So roll call, please.
Councilmember Moore?
Oh, no, that's vote with a, oh wait, we need to do roll call because the one person, it's a hybrid. We have a person on
Correct.
virtual. So that's
Councilmember Willie is attending remotely, so
we need
roll
to
call
do a
vote
roll
works
call.
best.
Okay.
So Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Motion carries with Paul absent.
Okay, Now, item number 10 to 15, so
All right.
that's, do we have any staff report on those?
Vice
Or
Mayor,
comments?
if I
Yeah.
may. So items 10 through 14, my request actually is that we would table them until they have gone to the Audit Committee along with the monthly treasurer's report, and then return as a entire package to council. It's part of our adjustment to having the monthly treasurer's reports. And there are some questions that have already arisen regarding some of the accounts payable items. So the Audit Committee meets on June 27th. So this, I've already requested that these items be placed on that agenda. And then the idea is that that all of these items will come together next time, the next regularly scheduled meeting, with the whole monthly treasurer's report, rather than having these piecemeal and before the Audit Committee has a chance to look at them.
Okay. So any comment from the staff?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, is that feasible? So we.
Yes, that would be feasible.
Great.
Yep.
So
Okay.
then, could we have a motion to table items 10 to 15, right?
10 through 14.
10 to
please.
14, yeah.
Please, so moved.
Any second? I'll just second. Okay. That's,
Vice Mayor, I'm sorry for clarity. What was are they tabled to a date to be
Oh,
determined?
to a date certain? Oh, no, to table until next council meeting.
Next regularly scheduled meeting, yes.
Oh, do we have enough time, though? If it's June 27th at Audit Committee, I think the next meeting is July 7th, right? Do we have enough time to?
Vice Mayor, let me see if our Administrative Services Director, Christina Alfaro, can answer for us.
The 7th would be a tight turnaround, given when we need to turn in staff reports. So the 21st would be more feasible.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe on next Monday's meeting, we are looking at the monthly treasurer's report already. So this would just be an addition to that. And the draft agenda came out earlier today. So I think it can be done because it's an attachment. Yeah. So.
I think that it's not tied for the audit, but tied for the July 7th meeting, right?
Correct.
So would that be, and for that meeting, I think the deadline for council agenda probably is 30th of June.
I'm going to have to look to our city clerk. I don't remember the.
So, okay, I guess we can just move to postpone to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Yes.
But if it's
Right.
not possible, it could just be put in postponement then.
Because the next meeting is not a regularly scheduled meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh,
So
the next meeting, the
Ju-
next regularly scheduled meeting is 21st anyway.
Or the.
So the July 5th council
Um,
meeting was moved to a special meeting on Thursday, July 7th, and the
Yeah.
next regular meeting would be Tuesday, July 19th.
19th. So is that okay? Okay, then so the motion is amended to postpone to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be July 19th. So can the motion maker vocalize your agreement?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe I said the next regularly scheduled meeting.
With
and,
your
and
motion.
we found that it is the 19th. So
Great.
that works out very
Okay,
well. All
so
right.
let's vote then.
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Wei,
Aye.
Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow.
Aye.
The motion as amended carries with Paul absent.
Thank you. Now, item number 15. Do we have a staff report on this?
Yes, I have our Director of IT, Bill Mitchell, is here. I'll turn it over
Vice
to Bill.
Vice Mayor Chow, council members, this is Bill Mitchell. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the city. I'd love to give you a short presentation that would correct some issues that were within the staff report and the agenda. So if you may, I will go ahead and share my screen. Are you able to see it?
Yes, we can see it. It's just your voice is a little on the low side, but it's audible.
Okay, I'll speak up a little bit louder then. So again, it's my pleasure to speak to you tonight about the Acela maintenance contract. This is for subscription licensing for land management. So this is Acela's core services that are provided to the city. I don't want to read the slides for you, but as you can see, there's a plethora of services that are provided to the city through this software application. Next slide, a little bit of background about Acela itself. We first procured this in April of 2017. It cost $152,000. There was approximately 70 licenses, 70 users at that time. It's used by multiple departments and divisions within the city. I've listed them there. The most important thing of this is it's a one-stop shop for permitting and land management systems for the city. It is online. It allows our residents to be able to actually go through a lot of the permitting processes online, if not totally for some applications. They never have to come into City Hall. They submit everything electronically. They're reviewed electronically by staff. Comments go back and forth, all electronically. And finally, you get a payment for the permit or the application, and then you receive the actual permit itself, all electronically. One thing that this really stood out for was during COVID, we were one of the few cities that were able to just keep on moving through COVID pandemic, and Acela was a big part of that. Acela generated $5,400,000 worth of fees over the past year. You will note that in the staff report, there's an extra zero there. It wasn't 54 million, it was only 5.4 million, but still that's a healthy bit. And Acela is integrated with all of our backends, from the financial system to our geographic information system, to our plan check, and finally to our Laserfish digital record. One thing that I failed to mention is that the actual amount for this is in the staff report. It's correct in the staff report where it's asking for, I'm sorry, let me go to that real quick. There was a $1.3 million request instead of the 1.2 that you're seeing on the agenda item. The staff report is correct on that. And with that, that ends my presentation. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'm open to any conversations that you may have. Any questions?
Oh, thank you. Councilmember Moore.
All right. Thank you very much for the report, Bill. And I think it does kind of sound like this program was part of how the article about the good performance of Cupertino during the COVID, the start of the COVID pandemic came about. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Okay, excellent. So I was wondering about the 5.4 million in fees, what that actually means in practice.
So everyone that put in for a permit or plan review or any of that have to pay a fee, right, based on our fee schedule. And Acela collects all of that in the background. So when you pay online, where there's a payment come to the cashier for Acela, it collects that information, and then we pass that on into our financial system, which is New World. And the information that I got, the 5.4, actually came from the financial system saying this is what came over from Acela.
Okay, thank you. So someone has probably been inputting what our updated fee schedule is within the system that we look at on an annual basis. I would assume, and that's how these fees are getting generated.
That is correct. So the way the process works is we know the fees going to council beforehand. We test those all out for a couple weeks before the fee schedule actually goes into effect. And based on council direction, when that date certain is defined, and we're ready to rock and roll and put it into production.
Okay, excellent. And so if we, I saw that it was integrated with the ERP system. If we move to a new ERP system, which you are exploring this year, you'd need to reconnect with the new system as well, as I'm understanding.
That is correct. We
Okay.
would have to make that connection.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Moore. I see a public hand up from Peggy Griffin, but I also see Council Member Willie. I think the recommendation from the mayor is after staff presentation to go to the public, which is why I did not have the council member ask questions for the climate action plan. But since Council Member Moore pulled the item, so I kind of wish that she could explain her reasons for pulling. But maybe let's go to the public first to get the public input and then go to Council Member Willie. Peggy.
Good evening, council members and staff. I have questions. Two, with this system, does it incorporate or can you incorporate development agreements so that they can be compliant upon issuance of permits, and also continued compliance by reissuance of permits, several years later? That's one question, development agreements. And the other is zoning overlays. In our area, we have a zoning overlay, and we've had issues with inspections not enforcing overlay requirements, and municipal code having to be called for overlay issues. Thank you.
Bill, could you please answer
Sure.
those
Vice
questions?
Mayor Chow, I'd be happy to answer the question. So on the first part on the development, yes, any requirements from the development side are put into a SELA, so that all of those requirements are met, go through. And then zoning requirements, zoning is part of the SELA as well. It's tied into the system. So there is some work from the planning folks and from the building folks when they go through that to make sure that the zoning code is met, but it is part of the SELA process for the initial as well as the reoccurring assignment.
So how about zoning overlay?
Well,
that will be
was the
part
last
of
I
it.
was talking about the zoning overlay. So there is a little bit of work from the planning folks on that, but it is part of a SELA. That it's a checkbox. You should be able to see that we're meeting zoning code as well.
So digitally, there is a list of checklist that people can check through to satisfy the requirement for a permit.
There is zoning verification. It can be done, absolutely.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you for taking the leadership in digitizing this process. It's amazing. Councilmember Willie.
Great, thank you. So, thank you, Bill. And I think, I'm not confused, but I'm not sure the community quite grasps it. When you were doing your PowerPoint, you said that this software, this Excelius, generated $5.4 million. And I think to a lot of people, that would somehow mean that, we've purchased something and we're making money off of using it. But in reality, that 5.4 million represents the fees for project that the city is entitled to with or without Excelius. And so again, that to me is the important point to the community. The $5.4 million is developer fees that the city is entitled to. Without Excelius, conceivably they would be coming to the plan check counter and turning in their check, and then they'd go into the finance department. And so, I just want to be sure our community understands that, this is a pay type software, and that then, am I correct in what I just said?
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. You are absolutely correct in this. This is just a collection vehicle. It doesn't
Right.
it doesn't do anything more except collect the payment. As far as it truly enhances the efficiency of our process, but it's a collection mechanism.
So then it goes to the question again. I don't think I'm confused. I think you were pretty clear. So you bought this in 2017 for 170,000, just under 200,000, and to use that software to collect the fees. And current is it's going to be 1.26 million. Oh, wait a minute, that's a lot. But that is for a 5-year license. So it went from 170 in 2017 to maybe 240,000 in 2022. So, kind of a typical inflationary increase. That kind of makes sense. But then I would go one more question, and we're paying a licensing fee as opposed to a transaction fee, so that when we're owed the $5.4 million, we get the full $5.4 million. Excellius is not skimming off, 5% like a credit card or PayPal, and we're just making this one-time payment to them. I hope by me saying this, they're not listening and that they're going to move to a transaction fee type software. But, again, just double check me that I'm correct in what I'm saying so that the community then is understanding what we've got here.
Councilmember Willie, you are correct again. It is not transaction based. It is subscription based on license count. So the increase in fee not only has to do with the uplift that they do from an annual perspective, we also have added additional licenses as well as product sets within Acela. For example, we have an enhanced reporting module that we bought for them for about $30,000 that's included in that fee. So we continually enhance the product. And of course, as you move forward in enhancing products, sometimes you have to pay additional money.
Yep. Thank you very much, Bill.
You bet.
Councilmember Wade, do you have any? No? Okay.
No, I have no comments. Thank you.
So, Bill, so you say the fee is based on licensing count. So the current 1.3 million is based on an estimate of the number of licenses we will issue, or it's a flat fee regardless how many licenses we issue?
The Mayor, I'm sorry, I might have confused a little bit. So the licensing is user-based license. So it's the number of staff that are using the Acela platform.
Oh.
So we have 82 staff using the Acela platform today. We did put it in a 10% contingency, expecting that more staff will be using it. For example, some of the staff that are part of the new hires, they will be using Acela. So we just wanted to make sure that we don't have to come back every year and tell you, hey, we're adding, $2,000 to this project. We have enough contingency in there to just cover all those costs. And
okay.
Again, as Councilmember Willie said, this is a 5-year agreement, so that cost is 5 years.
So it's based on the number of user accounts. That makes sense. I suppose this will reduce staff time. That will pay for itself. However, I also understand that the fees TCT charge have to be only for recovery of cost. We cannot make money out of these licensing and permitting fees. So if this software is helping us to reduce staff time, would we in the future might be able to reduce those fees by using this software?
Based on the projection of the work that we have in front of us, that's not going to be anytime soon. Right? As we get more and more permits happening and things going on, we thought COVID, we'd actually see a downturn. We didn't see a downturn. If anything, we saw an upturn, especially in residential permitting for people putting in, remodeling or things like that. So we do not see that the work will slow down. What this allows us to do is just be more effective with the existing staff that we have right now. As you know, the planning and building folks are being slammed today. And this is just one more tool in their tool belt, kind of assist them with that. If we didn't have this and we went back to the old paper-based system, you'd be having tons more staff in that area.
Well, I think the number of requests increasing means usually that means the cost actually goes down per case. But then you are saying we won't see that anytime soon, not because a lot of these still need a lot of staff time to process, right? So the software also helps, but really won't be reducing staffing cost.
Correct. It's just the number of requests that we get in for services.
So we are, even for the $5.4 million, we are simply recovering the staffing cost and the software cost for processing all these fees, all these licenses and permits.
So what I would have to do is I would have to ask my colleague in finance, Christina, to answer that question. I don't get into that portion of it. Over my head.
That's fine. I think it's just, it's good for the public to understand all these licensing and permitting fees are necessary cost to cover the city's cost to process them. And we are not making profit out of this kind of fees. Yeah. I think any other questions for this? So could we have a motion?
Motion is moved
move to authorize this, the recommended action.
I move the recommended action.
Councilmember Moore.
Second?
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Motion carries with Paul absent.
Thank you. And now we go to item 17, right? Right, 15 is moved. Okay, 17. It's for the Stevens Creek Boulevard vision study. Do we have a staff report?
I'm going to have to, let me.
Yes,
I'm here, Jim.
Oh, okay, good. Wasn't sure. Matt Morley, our Public Works Director.
Thank you. So I'm just going to turn it straight over to Chris Correa, our Senior Transit and Transportation Planner, and Chris will take us through a quick report.
Good evening, council members. I will keep this brief. This was an item that the council heard on February 15th. It is a multi-jurisdictional study of Stevens Creek Boulevard. It's a transportation vision study. The council made a motion to participate along with Santa Clara, VTA, the city of Santa Clara, and San Jose in studying the Stevens Creek Boulevard for transit and other transportation improvements. The amount that was agreed to in the motion is the amount in front of you this evening in a funding agreement with the city of San Jose, who would serve as sort of the lead in this multi-jurisdictional effort. And I am available for any questions you have.
Thank you. So this item was pulled by the public, so I'll go to the public comment first. Jennifer.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you for looking at this item. I appreciate Public Works giving a report on it. I'm familiar with this item because I followed it through the planning. I think it was planning and city council again. And you know, I'm aware of what this study is, but the City Council of San Jose did something last Tuesday that really made me concerned of how the this money is going to be used, and San Jose sort of dominating this. So last Tuesday at San Jose City Council meeting, all of their city council members voted to reduce parking in the city of San Jose. I may have said that broadly, but I'm very, very concerned about this because I don't think the public I read some reports on it. The public is not happy with this decision. I don't think the public was asked, but every single city council member in San Jose voted to work on reducing parking in the city of San Jose. Well, I am very, very concerned about this. I sent a letter an email to you all. I am concerned about the intent of this West San Jose Stevens Creek Boulevard Vision Study. As I have said, San Jose City Council voted in unison to ban parking across the city on the 13th. I'm very concerned about Cupertino donating money to this study if the intent is to reduce traffic lanes on Stevens Creek Boulevard. I think the intent of this study is to eliminate cars on Stevens Creek Boulevard, and that is not a good option for Cupertino. We have cars and we use cars. I don't think it's being factored in this big San Jose dominated study. I don't think it's appropriate for Cupertino to donate money to the study if San Jose City Council is sending the signal that they don't like cars by voting as they did last week to eliminate parking in their city. Cupertino does not want to eliminate parking in Cupertino. Why should we spend $150K on a study from San Jose that will just say eliminate cars and parking as a solution? The $150K can be spent to fix up the Stocklemeyer House or provide meals to the homeless people at the 280 off-ramps. I know this is a very important study, but I am not convinced that Diridon is going to be a go for the city of San Jose. Stevens Creek Boulevard, we have our own issues of heart of the city. I don't want street trees cutting down. And frankly, if they're trying to eliminate car lanes on Stevens Creek Boulevard, we're going to be down to one lane in each direction. And with Valco roaring up and other buildings going on, I just can't see this being a viable option. I understand that this is a multi-jurisdictional, different cities, et cetera, but I really think that San Jose City Council should should think about the message they're sending when they make decisions like that. They're getting a new mayor next year, and what are we supposed to think about this? That's all my statement is, that I think this money could be better used, or maybe City of San Jose can tell us if they're trying to eliminate parking in their city, how do they plan to, City of Santa Clara sitting across the street from them. I don't get it. And I think that city councils need to be very cognizant of the messages that they're sending to other cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now I see Council Member Willie. Your hand is up.
Great. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Chris, thank you for your brief, and can't quite remember how that's on TV or something. Your brief but spectacular moment on PBS. At any rate, a little bit of history to my memory is that this came to us a couple years ago, back when Rod Sinks was still on the city council, and we voted at that time not to participate because we thought that San Jose was going to be the elephant in the room, and yet we're contributing, but yet not really significant in the discussion. Since then, though, transportation, traffic, and everything, even through the pandemic, has continued to be an issue that, I think we all say does need to be worked on, whether we do it city by city or we do it in a coordinated way. That being said, so Chappie Joan reached out to me, probably a year and a half ago, and made his pitch for please, join in this study. And so I relayed to him what I believe this city council said back then, when it was first brought to us, that, Cupertino has its own needs for its own community and cannot be driven by a larger entity, but that we really should all be trying to work together. That being said, the primary contention, I think, when we had this a couple years ago, was the concept that San Jose, one of their serious options, I believe, is a BRT line, removing one lane of traffic for a bus rapid transit only lane, which really wouldn't work in Cupertino, as our resident, I think correctly said, our community and our vice mayor previously, 80% of the people in Cupertino have to get out. So that being said, the message that I gave Chappie Jones, the councilman in San Jose that's responsible for that Stevens Creek, is anything we can do to help coordinating the lights, making more bus stops out of traffic. Our lanes are, kind of narrow. When a VTA bus stops on Stevens Creek, a few cars will go around it, but a significant number of them do not feel safe going over that white line to go around the bus. And so perhaps we can make recesses, like I've seen in other cities, principally San Jose, that their bus stops actually do have a slight recess to make enough room for the through traffic to go. So those would be the types of things that I would hope Cupertino's representation is going to be speaking to. How can we work together? How can we really fulfill the needs of the Cupertino residents? And now the question comes back to Chris. So we contribute $154,000. Who in Cupertino is going to be sitting in this team and being sure that they're bringing forth? By all means, I'm big on options. I won't shy away from different options, but realistically, whoever is going to be speaking on behalf of the 64,000 residents, they really need to be sure they understand the 64,000 residents. Chris, how is that going to happen? Who's going to be our representative? Thanks.
Sure, thank you, council members. So we'll really have two groups. There will be one that is a staff-led group that I participate in on frequent meetings that will take place throughout the entire study, which is estimated to be 19 months. And then there will be a group of elected officials from each jurisdiction also during the course of the project. And there will be robust community outreach through the whole project and many, many opportunities for Cupertino residents to weigh in on any ideas or concepts presented.
Great, then I'll leave it with great. I fully trust your ability to run that staff portion of it. I would simply want to say that please don't hesitate to come back to City Council. It maybe doesn't need to be a full-fledged study session, but come back to us and say, hey, these are the ideas that were floated. How does the City Council feel that this community is going to feel about these things? Yes, you'll be doing some outreach, but I'd really like to be more involved in that as opposed to waiting for the end when it does come back as a regular agenda item, and then hear that, well, we did a survey, we had 187 participants, and 65% said, hey, great, do this, because that doesn't necessarily, we usually get the residents that are going to be most likely to take this alternative transportation, as opposed to the ones that are the balance of the 64,000. And I think we really have to be aware of being equitable to all the residents in Cupertino for something that is going to be this much in everybody's ballpark. So I'll just say that. Take it away and help us. Thanks.
Okay. Well, our pleasure.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore, and then Councilmember Wei. Oh, Councilmember Wei first.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thanks, Councilmember Willie, for the detailed history. And I do remember we talked about this, and we have actually extended the study to all the way to Foothill Boulevard instead of stopping at Dianza Boulevard. I do believe it's important for us to be in the study. We are not donating money. This is part of our study too, because the transportation needs to come from Deardown Station all the way to Foothill. We have to be on the table to put our opinions there to benefit our residents and our city. So yeah, I'll leave it to that. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Oh yeah, thank you for remembering about the extension to Foothill. So do we have that in the current agreement? So we do have that.
Yes.
Okay, because I read the scope of work, I didn't seem to find that. Thank you for the confirmation. Yeah, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I served on the Stevens Creek Corridor Transit Steering Committee, which met December 13th, 2021, and the mayor was not present for that meeting. But I believe, I think Chris might have been on that meeting at that time. So one of the things that I had brought up was how the residents really appreciate and want to maintain the look and feel of the corridor with the trees and the setbacks, and that there was some interest in actually having underground transit, which is very expensive. To my recollection, in their presentation, there was actually a photograph of the protected bike lane in front of Main Street, Cupertino, showing the beautiful landscaping there as well. And it was highlighted as a very attractive example. So I just want to bring that up, that we have had members of council present on the Stevens Creek Corridor Transit Steering Committee advocating for the community and letting them know that the challenges we're going to have include that we are working on having those protected bike lanes all along Stevens Creek Boulevard, and it makes it more challenging as we've noticed at the various intersections to prioritize the buses to go through. So signalized timing is one thing that can be done. We don't have the advantages that San Jose does with regards to having this space with on-street parking, which you notice as soon as you go down Stevens Creek Boulevard and get into the San Jose area, they've got on-street parking, and they also have the center median to work with. So if they're going to be having dedicated lanes, they've already got some of that space already there. And also if they're going to be adding protected bike lanes along Stevens Creek, they have those options. Whereas, as we know, along Stevens Creek Boulevard, we don't have any on-street parking, and we also have some very limited space in the center median, and it's a lot of the center median where it does get wider, we have landscaped out. So we've got full-size trees in that area. So all of this was communicated along with the outreach challenges which they are going to have, because for instance, we have the 1,201 BMR units coming in at the Valco site. So how do you do outreach for a future population, and also there does need to be outreach for the senior community coming in at the Westport location, and for the students at De Anza College, which is they're going back in person learning there. So all of these items have been communicated, and the probably also bring up their original RFI, which San Jose conducted. They had about 19 different companies make suggestions, and some of them were very forward-thinking by graduate students, but you had options ranging from underground tunneling by the Boring Company, which would have electric vehicles potentially in it, above ground monorail and SkyRail, which is interesting, a very kind of future thinking. Also, the Glideways company had made a proposal, and there were other elevated transit options which were suggested. All of these are very, very expensive. So I don't personally know what ultimately the group is looking towards, but this is to, it's my understanding that they took option B, which is to to remove all the formal design and replace it with illustrative concepts to support engagement process and discussions for the corridor. So it's not really a set design, but to provide options and get feedback from the community. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I think I have confirmed that agreement does talk about it. From Stevens Creek Boulevard between Foothill Boulevard and Dearden Station would all be considered. I think it's important that we extend the transit corridor to Foothill. Chris, could you please confirm? I think there were some other concerns mentioned that by either this council and even the previous council in 2018, that we don't want to only consider the bus rapid transit option. We want other options considered, because for Cupertino, for example, light rail along 280 or other options, even the more expensive underground options. And so could you confirm that they will consider, this vision study will be open for different options?
We've been very consistent throughout the process in our opposition of bus rapid transit or any option that would remove travel lanes. But we've stated that we're open to hearing ideas, and our preference in Cupertino and likely anything realistically that could happen here could only be grade separated. And we'll continue to be consistent with that through the study.
Councilmember Moore.
One of the things that I was looking at fairly recently was our contribution as a city with regards to the Bradley Burns tax and Measure B 2016 transit funding. So I just want to bring it up that we actually, behind San Jose, which generates about 50% of the county's total sales tax revenue, we are actually number 2. Yeah, so at about $58 million. And if you consider what our transit looks like for the second place, if you will, cities behind San Jose, Sunnyvale has real transit, and actually so does Campbell with the light rail line there. But at Cupertino, we for the amount of sales tax revenue that we're generating, we really don't have the transit one would expect, especially with having the Apple headquarters here. So it's something to consider as we move forward, that we really do need to take care of providing forward-thinking transit in the future, and not simply a bus line, but something that moves more people and is a higher quality.
Thank you. Yeah, talking about equity all the time, this is really not equitable to Cupertino. I see no other hands up, so could we have a motion to approve this item? Yeah, Councilmember Moore.
Okay, so I was going to just simply say so moved, but I think I'll read the whole thing.
Recommended action.
Yes, I move that we authorize the city manager to execute a funding agreement between the City of Cupertino and the City of San Jose for the Stevens Creek Corridor Vision Study and adopt resolution number 22-076, approving budget modification 2122-191 in the amount of $154,079 for the City of Cupertino's contribution toward the Stevens Creek Corridor Vision Study, an amount that includes a 10% contingency.
Thank you, Councilmember Wei.
I'll second it.
Oh, that's roll call, please.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Wei?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Motion carries, Paul absent.
Thank you. It's 8:03. Let's take a 5-minute break. So we'll come back at 8:08. Yeah.